With several teams running away from it, thankfully, Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State have brought the spring game back. This is great for the state, it's great for the fans, and it's great for us to see the players that are vying for the opportunity to start for Oklahoma State in 2025 as the spring portal chaos has begun.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Oldeo State. Today, we're brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now when new customers can get $250 back in bonus bets when your first $5 bet is a winner. Head on over to FanDuel.com to get started today. Meanwhile, we shift into the conversation of spring ball. Well, a lot of teams, including our Bedlam brethren, which we're going to talk about a little bit later down the road, are getting rid of. Oklahoma State's Mike Gundy has decided to bring the spring game back. And, of course, I think this is huge for any fan base that's trying to grow a little bit more nationally. In order for you to grow nationally, you have to make sure that regionally you have things kind of locked down. And Oklahoma State fan base needs to continue to grow. You're seeing in the recruiting landscape, the Cowboys are having a ton of success locking down the in-state products. We have a long ways to go, but part of that is giving back to the fan base, especially that is local. This is huge for everybody that is looking at the Cowboys to make a resurgent 2025 football season. But the transfer portal giveth, and the transfer portal does, in fact, taketh away. The Cowboys just land 6'4", 300-pound offensive tackle from Appalachian State, Markell Samuel. Markell Samuel was on the top 10 best available transfer portal guys just a week ago, according to 247. And he was ranked above some guys from Texas and some guys from Georgia. So it is obviously a very important ordeal that we bring in quality guys. Now, we're going to talk with the recruiting analyst and expert Brian Smith a little bit later about Markell specifically. So we're going to jump into the downside, and that is R.J. Lester, 6'3", 180-pound corner out of the Arkansas area, was top 10 in the state of Arkansas, did pick Oklahoma State over schools like LSU and Kansas State. He has decided to put his name in the transfer portal. So since we know numerically we have to get down to 105, we're not there now. Plus, after spring, we're going to bring in a large portion of freshmen. So getting down to that 105 number by the beginning of the season is not going to be difficult. So if we know R.J. Lester's out, let's take a gander at some of the individuals that likely are to be on board to take their talents elsewhere throughout the course of this season. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Cowboys respond, because that response is probably going to be what equals what the next round of recruiting and transfer portal looks like. But we've already lost some dudes before the season or before spring started, and some of them were surprised, like losing Jason Queso Brooks. Was it surprising given his grading? Yes. Was he utilized properly? Not exactly. Lyric Rawls, of course, they wanted him to put on some weight and move to linebacker. He wanted to stay as a safety. So it kind of makes some sense. Losing Isaiah Glass to Vanderbilt hurt a little bit. Losing Hudson Cock to Auburn, I think, is going to be a loss. We couldn't afford Dejon Stribling, especially in a year where we had to rebuild, so it makes sense. Losing Kendall Daniels to OU, I don't think that was much of a surprise. Tywan Ray was a little bit of a surprise, in my personal opinion. Seeing Jeff Robertson almost make a bad decision by moving down to OU. Thankfully, he got out of that spot. He's headed to Minnesota. I think that's awesome. Now, R.J. Lester joins the fold. Gabe Brown, still a high kid that a lot of us would have liked to see find a way to make it all make sense and stay on the roster, but things happen. But this isn't going to be the last. So I figured let's take a stab at essentially one player per position that might be taking his talents elsewhere once the spring games are over, which is even more important of a reason to have a big spring game. We've had guys pop up in the past and have really big spring games and then disappear through the season. Well, I hope Tyke Andrews doesn't fall into that category, because I think he's had a really nice spring, and him having the Rashawn Woods pedigree, being from down the road in Enid, Oklahoma, he could be somebody who could go start somewhere fairly quickly, but I have a feeling that he should stay hold in Stillwater. As should Royal Capel. He might be one of the only freshmen that sees a significant number of playing time or even any real leveraging of playing time might be Royal Capel. Gavin Freeman just came over from OU after making this decision this previous spring. Excited to see what he provides. With the injury to Talon Shetron, I don't see Trey Griffiths going anywhere. Cameron Hurd might be the most susceptible because we've seen flourishes of moments where he could have massive impacts, but he's never been able to solidify a spot. And when you bring in Sam Jackson from Auburn and Jalen Lloyd from Nebraska and DeJuan Lofton last year from Virginia Tech, it is going to make it difficult. Not to mention we brought in Shamar Rigby from Purdue. And nobody's pushing Io Shotomide King to the side. So out of everybody on the current wide receiver roster, I figure it's either going to be Kyler Pearson or Cam Hurd would be the two most likely candidates that have the potential to go start somewhere pretty quickly. Tight end, I feel like we went after a ton, so we're going to use them a ton. So we're probably not going to get rid of one, but just by process of elimination, that would likely be a Quentin Stewart who has spent 5 years at Oklahoma State. But of course, that veteran leadership and that locker room presence might be something that we utilize. So I don't expect to lose a tight end, but if we were to lose one, maybe it would be the redshirt senior Quentin Stewart. Safety, Jeremy Cook's too new. Landon Cleveland's too good. Reed DeQuazy, I think, has much more capabilities than he's been able to showcase thus far. Cam Epps, right, up and down career. He might be an individual that's impacted by a lot of the guys that are coming in. So perhaps Cam Epps, it would hurt my heart quite a bit, but he could be somebody that move on to another Power Four and have a starting position. David Kabongo came on quite a bit last year as the season moved on, so I definitely expect him back. Cooper Lay out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, as a redshirt sophomore. He could be an individual that sees some playing time, but he could also be somebody that looks for something else in the portal. Mordecai McDaniel, I feel like he's good to go. Chase Bankston's good to go. Parker Robertson, he might be an individual that could explore the portal, but being a redshirt senior that was instrumental and part of the success we did have last season, maybe not. Dylan Smith does play a decent amount, so probably not. So maybe Cade Welcher, maybe Ty Williams. It would be Cade Welcher, Ty Williams, Cooper Lay, or Cameron Epps would be the idea for me here. Running back, well, we just picked up Freddie Brock, so the likelihood of us getting rid of somebody or somebody moving on is probably slightly unlikely. But out of Rodney Fields, Caleb Hicks, Trent Howland, Sesi Vailahe, with the injury to Jaden Allen Hendricks, I don't expect to lose anybody, but if we did, it would probably be Sesi. Just because I don't know what kind of role he's going to have this upcoming season. Quarterbacks. Nobody expected that we keep all four post-spring. Coming into the spring, I'll be honest with you, I thought that if Garrett Rangel didn't win the job, then perhaps he might be the best candidate to take his talents elsewhere. But seemingly him and Hosseini are doing so good that maybe it wouldn't be a Garrett Rangel. Maybe it would be more like a Milwaukee Smith. Even though he did get to play some last season, he may not fit in the same as the other three in this system. Outside linebackers going to be pretty interesting. Chandavian Bradley, Rashad Bradley, Malik Charles, Dalil Johnson, Yamil Talib. Well, the common consensus is going to be, Jalil is too promising, Malik's too new, Rashad's too new, Chandavian's too new, so that would leave out Yamil Talib. But I wouldn't jump on that so fast. I think Yamil definitely feels confident in his capabilities. So, yeah, Yamil probably would be the outlier here, but I think that I would be more willing to rock with Yamil than perhaps one of the other individuals. Offensive line, we have an overabundance of them, so the likelihood of us keeping everybody is pretty slim. Kason Carpenter, Louis Canepa being two transfer guys that come in alongside Tyler Brumfield, probably going to square into the conversation. So perhaps it's a Davis Dotson, the 6'6", 305-pound junior from Berry Hill that gets a little left out. Caleb Hackelman, I feel like is too young. So perhaps a Jared Henry, redshirt junior, if he's not getting big boy moments this season, perhaps that's somebody that explores elsewhere. Austin Kawecki, we've seen this guy grow through his time at Oklahoma State. So again, unlikely, but are you going to be able to hold on to all of these guys? We've heard a lot about Nuku Mafi coming on strong. Noah McKinney should have played significantly more than the last year. Could it be Jameson for Broken Arrow? I don't think it's going to be Jacoby Sanders. Could be Gage Stanland, but highly doubtful. So out of all of those offensive linemen, I unfortunately feel like that Austin Klecki is probably the most likely of the bunch because he has the capability to start almost instantaneously. Linebacker, could it be, Chance Clements, I don't think is going to factor into this conversation. I don't think Graham Marable is as well. Chris Robinson is somebody that I think could have a very good place here at Oklahoma State. So I don't want to necessarily say that we'd go that route quite yet. Talon Kendrick's probably too young. Trip White, too new. Gunnar Wilson, way too talented. So then you're going down to kicker, right? Penikowski, Schrum, Ward, Arriaga. Well, with everything that just happened to his mom, nobody would fault Case and Schrum for taking his talents elsewhere as well. Then you go down to the defensive tackle. We just got Havili Kafusi from UCLA. Justin Kirkland seems pretty dialed in. Amon Oates is poised to have a big year. So maybe a Jalen Tucker could find his way elsewhere. Maybe Aiden Kelly, the guy who was a big-time four-star get, hasn't really seen the flourishment of his abilities quite yet. Deshaun Brown, I feel like he's got too much motivation going into this season to some degree, as does Landon Dean. Kyron Duhan is a big-time get out of UTEP. Armstrong Odom has the capability and versatility to do a multiple amount of things. So the common denominator would probably end up being Patrick Ojo here. Moving on to cornerback, we just lost RJ Lester. Jalen Davies doing too good. LaDainian Fields, way too promising. Kobe Forming, too young. Raymond Gay II, redshirt senior, has played some, but hasn't really carved out a massive role. He could be one of the next in line to explore elsewhere, as could be Kenneth Harris. Likely came over from Arkansas State, anticipating a bunch of playing time. He's got a decent amount, but not a lot. J.K. Johnson's doing too good. Jacoby Oliphant's way too promising. Carrington Pierce is too new. Cam Smith's too reliable. Cale Smith is obviously somebody that could be part of this conversation. But at the end of the day, we're not going to be immune just because it's a numbers game. We're numerically going to have to shave some of this roster. So I've given you my pieces. Let me know down in the comments section. Who do you think, off of the current roster, OKState.com, who do you think of those guys might be the most likely per position to end up taking their talents elsewhere in the transfer portal? Because it's inevitability. It has to happen to at least some of them. What is also an inevitability is you being a winner with FanDuel. The NBA playoff action is almost upon us. FanDuel is giving our new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 back in bonus bets if your bet is a winner. If you love making betting easy, FanDuel is the best in the business. Whether you're picking your favorite team or diving in it for specific player props, three-pointers, steals, assists, dunks, blocks, FanDuel has so many ways for you to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tip-off begins, you can combine live prop bets into the same game parlay for the biggest chances to win. Do not miss out on your opportunity to get engaged with the NBA playoffs like never before. Head on over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Make sure you play your first $5 hauler into a winning scenario to get the 250 bones back in bonus bets. Get with FanDuel.com and do it today. So the Cowboys got beat up pretty handily in Bedlam baseball. This is not a good year for the Bedlam Bell, which the Cowboys have won for year after year after year. The OU did tie us a few years back. So even though that they've carried the Bedlam weight in football for a long time, it was our ability to pick them off in all the other sports, right? That kind of kept us at the forefront. Baseball, basketball, soccer. This conversation now is getting a little dicey because obviously we're not going to play in football. They beat us in softball. Now they beat us in baseball. They beat us in basketball. This is not really a good Bedlam Bell year outside of wrestling. So are we surprised that a top 20 OU beat this Cowboy baseball team? Given the way the season's gone, maybe not exactly surprised. annoyed, frustrated, irritated, angry. All of those things are applicable to an 11-1 absolute disastrous performance. But even more telling might have been the way that Josh Holliday handled himself in a post-game conversation with Rex and Chief and the post-game crew. He sounded, I'll just say it, Josh Holliday sounded very butthurt in his responses. It was knee-jerk, vitriolic. It almost seems like the pressure is getting to Josh Holliday. It almost seems like he understands that the lay of the land has shifted a little bit. Now, granted, there is still going to be a large percentage of Cowboy country that backs Josh Holliday to the end of time. And I know a lot of us have been kind of pointing the finger for the last few years at Rob Walton being an issue. But the more this stuff progresses, and the more difficulty we have in both hitting and pitching and decision-making, unfortunately, you do have to start pointing the finger more towards Holliday. I mean, when you are watching the game, he does seem to be the one that is indicating to Rob Walton via the walkie-talkie conversations about, when to get guys going. And if he's the one making the decisions on who gets going, that's an absolute travesty. And Rob Walton should, no, he's not gonna call out Josh Holliday, but it would be a travesty to find out that you do have somebody with the pedigree of Rob Walton, at least getting some of the main guys in and producing some of the main guys that now then take their game to Major League Baseball and seemingly continuously get better. It's kind of like, to some degree, in football, we could all complain about how horrendous Casey Dunn was. We could watch South Alabama players laugh at our offense and joke about how they pretty much scripted most of the game because they knew what plays we were going to run. And sure enough, those are the exact plays that we ran. And then we could all get mad at Casey Dunn and how elementary the offense is and how embarrassing it is that G5 schools make fun of our offense. But at the end of the day, it was Mike Gundy that kept backing Casey Dunn, kept backing Charlie Dickey. So you do have to point some fingers to Mike Gundy and be like, okay, dude, you're not seeing what is happening for whatever reason. And that is now kind of morphing into Josh Holliday. Because, we've given Rob Walton a hard time. And, the hitting seemed to change when Josh Holliday came on board. It didn't seemingly do much different with Robin Ventura involved. And now that some of those guys are gone, and you've got Steve Sabins dominating at West Virginia. You got Roland Fanning being able to recruit out his wazoo at Austin Peay. It makes you wonder, does Josh Holliday have this thing churning in butter? If he did, he would not be having these vitriolic, almost butthurt level responses to guys who have been on his side and have been covering his games for hours and hours and hours and years and years and years and years. I do feel like that the pressure is getting to Josh Holliday, which makes me almost wonder, does Josh Holliday even have a solution? Again, I'm not insinuating that he needs to go per se, but there needs to be a come to Jesus meeting. And unfortunately, it may take Rob Walton to be a sacrificial lamb on behalf of Josh Holliday. But we do have to start asking the question, given his responses, because it wasn't just that. There was another interview that he did where he talked about how injuries to Avery Ortiz and Aiden Miola and Gabe Davis have been, massive issues throughout the course of the season. But then he literally, like 2 minutes later, said, but we're not going to make any excuses. We don't make excuses. I've got to do better. After just making excuses, right? And we've unfortunately heard that before. There are some parallels to the Mike Gundy, Josh Holliday conversation. And at the end of the day, Mike Gundy did have to agree to the decisions to get rid of Dunn and Nardo and Dickey, McIndoe and Wads and everybody else to make 2025 at least appealing to the fan base and to recruits and to transfers. So baseball is seemingly in the same position, and it would be a crying shame if it turns out that it wasn't Rob Walton that was making these decisions. It's not Rob Walton that manages who comes in the mound and who doesn't. I would find that slightly unfathomable if that were to be the case, because he's your pitching coach that has a legendary career that obviously knows way more than anybody else in that building just about the art of pitching. But we've been complaining about how can a pitching coach go throughout the course of the offseason and every week do pitching workouts and then not understand why his pitches are struggling on the mound and not being able to tell that his slider's not working or the fastball's not finding command. Well, maybe it's not Rob Walton. Maybe it is Josh Holliday. Maybe Rob is in the walkie-talkie like, hey, I can tell you right now he's not gripping that pitch right. It's not coming out of his hand right. He's not going to hit that spot today. And maybe Josh Holliday's like, no, we're going to roll with it. Don't worry about it. Again, we don't know. And that would seem to be slightly unlikely. But at the end of the day, the buck does have to stop with somebody, right? And in football, the buck did have to stop with Mike Gundy. And so Mike Gundy had to fire everybody, whether he wanted to or not. Now Josh Holliday is seemingly in a similar situation. The downside is, and I didn't realize this till earlier today, somebody brought it up. Chad Weiberg's only got like another year left on his official deal. So I don't know if Chad Weiberg wants to be exploring potentially signing a new contract, staying longer as the AD or whatever, if you're having to deal with this level of a coaching replacement. So again, am I ready to get rid of Josh Holliday? No. Do I think Josh Holliday needs to shake up the entire staff, whether it's willingly or not at this point in time? Unfortunately, yes. It would be a travesty to find out later that Rob was kind of being relegated into the corner. Hopefully we'll find out someday. Just like hopefully we'll find out soon enough if Steve Lutz has got another trick up his sleeve in what already has been a ridiculous transfer portal season for Cowboy basketball. I do think it's absolutely undeniable there we go. I don't know what that just was. Anyways, Steve Lutz is likely not done. We talked about how recently the Cowboys, according to On3 Sports, had the #1 portal class in the country. Part of that was they take into consideration the guys that are leaving. And at that time, we didn't have anybody leaving. Well, we do have Jamiron Keller and Connor Dow, both taking their talents elsewhere in the portal. Connor Dow's already landed with Oral Roberts. That is absolutely phenomenal. I think all of us are excited to see what he can do at ORU. Hopefully they can make a fun little run here. But the Cowboys have been busy. And even if you go outside of On3, taking into consideration the guys leaving versus coming, we were still top 15, 16, 17 in multiple other publications when it came to the transfer portal additions. Now, whenever you look at the idea that Connor Dow's gone, Jamiron Keller's gone, and now Patrick Sumnick is decided that he's going to enter the portal as well. I feel like, I don't know, we need another big dude, right? I like Mekhi Ragland. I think he's going to be a very, very good addition. I think he has a pretty big future. Same with the Ben Ahmed. But we don't know what they're going to look like. And we don't know what Vukovic is going to really morph into during his time at Oklahoma State. And we don't know if Robert Jennings is ready to kind of take on those big-time starter minutes. So what trick does he have up his sleeve? I have a feeling that UCF center Mustafa Thiem might be an individual that we go after very heavily. Syracuse forward Chris Bell might still be a potential option. Nevada forward Nick Davidson decided to go to Clemson. Youngstown center Gabe Daines decided to go to USC. Garden City Community College. I thought we were going to have a good shot at that dude. Just the story, where he came from, that level, everything. But it is what it is. We didn't end up getting him. Miami, Ohio forward Cam Kraft still available. North Florida forward Josh Harris is still available. Arizona State center Sean Phillips going to Mizzou, kind of a little bit of a surprise. Oregon State forward Parsa Falah is still an availability. And Grand Canyon center Duke Brennan also seems to be a possibility. Which of these gentlemen end up in Stillwater, I don't know. But we talked about how Steve Lutz was possibly going to use the Texas A&M job as a little bit of leverage. Well, it turns out that was kind of accurate. And it wasn't necessarily his doing, but other people in the NIL department came forward and said, I want to spend more on Oklahoma State basketball. I don't want Lutz leaving. I want to be able to garner more attention and get more guys in the transfer portal. So the NIL for basketball has had a significant uptick because of the way that the season progressed towards the end. The interest in a school like Texas A&M to open the piggy bank obviously means that Steve Lutz is really good at X's and O's, and other teams have identified that. It was just whether he could get the right talent in Stillwater to make a huge difference. Well, he's already done that with a lot of positions. And if we had another big dude, it would make a lot of the difference on whether we make a tournament run or if we actually win a game or two in the tournament. So it'll be interesting. But I have no doubt we have more NIL dollars than we have at almost any time ever in Cowboy basketball. And we also have a coach that has shown the ability to take transfer portal guys and turn them into different players. So we're not done. Steve Lutz has definitely got another trick up his sleeve. I feel like we're going to grab at least one more dude. I have a feeling it's going to be a big, but let me know down in the comments section for all of you out there on YouTube what your thoughts are on it. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Make sure you tune in a little bit later to hear about the breakdown of Markell with recruiting analyst Brian Smith. Until then, hit the like button if you like the daggone thing. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast and people out there. You are everything that makes this thing turn. I appreciate you. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. Alrighty, y'all. Later, my taters. Let's see if this works. Oh, it's working. How about that? Alrighty, y'all. We out of here. You know the drill. Go bye.